Hi, everybody. I am sitting across from my friend Rene Marie. Renee is a familiar face to many of you. She has been a featured artist on Modern Salon for years, but I wanted to talk to her about her journey from stylist, working in salons to full-time educator. And Renee, before we jump in, would you just give a little brief beauty bio? Tell us who you are and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anne, thank you and Modern for having me on here. You have always been so incredibly supportive and such an important part of my growth. I mean, I really owe it to you guys for a lot of aspects of my career, and I thank you for that. So, thank you for having me here, first of all. So, I'm Rene Marie. I have been in the hair industry for 20 years, went to cosmetology school when I was, 18, graduated, thrown in the ringer of, hey, you got to work in a salon. So I did. I've worked in many of them, which really just showed off that I was a true entrepreneur at heart, which I am now. So I started my own bridal business. And from there, I became an educator. And I now have a huge online academy with multiple courses and programs. And my current status is I am a coach and leader and mentor in this industry, and I'm training our future leaders and educators.
I love that lead in because that's what we're going to talk about, really. And this is especially appropriate because Modern is celebrating 100 years this year. And so we're really speaking to people in the industry who have had this kind of, who have had really interesting trajectories in their career and show all the benefits of beauty, but also the variety of ways you can go in a beauty career. So, what was your first experience as an educator?
I love this question. I could really take it in a couple directions because experience can mean so much, right? It could mean my first class that I ever taught, which really just comes in my mind first. It could mean, teaching lives and collaborating with brands. Like that was definitely an experience I've had. But I think I'll talk about the first class I ever hosted. And that was back in 2015 in South Florida in Boca Raton at a gorgeous salon that I actually was working behind the chair at the time. And I had, I think, about 5 or 6 girls in that setting. And I just remember that was the most incredible experience because that was the day where I said, wow, this is something I can really enjoy doing moving forward. I mean, the joy I got out of teaching others, the feedback that I received. I mean, the owner of the salon, he's been in the industry for years, and he said, wow, I actually learned some things today, which was, it just felt so good to be able to teach and showcase what comes more natural and effortlessly to me. So that was my first experience and moment where I said, wow, there is something to this, and I want to keep on going.
Well, how did you, I mean, how did you get tapped on the shoulder and even asked to educate? How did you come to the attention? Were you educating on specific technique or were you using a specific brand? So tell us a little bit how that evolved.
Yeah, sure. So this was the height, 2014, 15, the height of like the influencer movement, right? This is when like on Instagram, there were so many brands wanting to collaborate with influencers, me being one of them. I've worked with many different brands sending me free product. And then in return, I would make a video clip for them. So at that time, I had really gotten established with Kenra, and Kenra Professional actually, they have been supporting me throughout my journey as an educator, and they actually sponsored my first class with products for my students, which was such an incredible thing. And then I just, it was just evolving really from that influencer movement on Instagram. And at that time, I mean, I guess I could really call myself one of the OG educators because at that time there weren't many of us. I mean, it was when it was just emerging. There was Hair and Makeup by Steph. There was Confessions of a Hairstylist, Mustafa, Lala Zapdos. I mean, just a handful. And I got to be one of those, educators starting out. And I even got to teach with some of those incredible educators that I just mentioned. So it's just really the evolution. I mean, that was what, almost 7 years ago now. So it's completely changed. But that's how I got started.
That's great. Well, now what makes an effective educator? Especially specifically, what makes a good hairdressing educator?
Yeah, this is such a great question. So I, in my journey, have learned what it means to be an effective educator. I've learned by trial and error. I've learned by making mistakes. I've learned by just doing things on a whim and just figuring things out along the way, because I did not go to school for education. I just know what I know. I just had a love for it. And one day, just, a makeup artist working a wedding with me is like, how do you do that? And I was like, I don't know, it just comes easy to me. And then that was that epiphany that day where it's like, oh, I'm just going to teach it, right? So I've had to really just be in it. And I took the action. And as I was teaching, I realized, wow, you know what? I really should dial in and figure out how to really do this. I was just, like I said, just looking at like the educators at the moment. Okay, you do a hands-on class and a demo class. I just was seeing what was kind of already out there and kind of just like doing what was already there, and then evolving into myself and what I believed was being the most effective educator. And what I learned was, in the beginning, I was so passionate. I wanted to literally teach everything I knew. I was in one class. I was just so passionate. And what that did was it made me get, first of all, burnt out, because how can I possibly teach everything I knew with bridal styling in a 3-hour class, right? And second of all, it was information overload for my students. So I learned, okay, you know what? It was actually one of the Modern Salon artist sessions, the one in New York City. I forgot what year that was. I think it was 2018. Yeah, I think it was 2018 or 19. And one of the girls there, she asked me, she goes, "Oh, you teach, bridal hair classes. What's your outline or curriculum?" I was like, "I don't have one. I kind of just teach on a whim, and like, I have like the styles picked out that I want to teach, but there was no like structure or outline." And that was the day where I was like, you know what? I really probably should have one. So really just having that structure in place for your classes makes you an effective teacher. Also listening to your students. I mean, at first when I started teaching, I had to guess what people wanted to know and learn, because what came natural to me, I had to figure out how to dissect that and break it down so others could understand it. So by really listening to the needs of others and what they were asking me, or looking at what they were struggling with, I was able to identify, okay, this is the approach I need to take to teach this, versus, oh, I know it all and I'm just going to teach what I know. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to learn your students, learn what they need, and that's how you become an effective teacher.
Absolutely. And ultimately, you were doing both. You were combining teaching with seeing clients, correct? How did you do
Yeah.
how long did you do that? You were, I mean, in the salon, in classes. What did that look like? Plus raising a family.
Yes, I'm a mom of three. I have, oh my God, she just turned 14, Kylie, and my daughter, Summer Rae, she is 3, and then Braden, he's 15 months old. So yes, I'm a mama. And what that evolution looked like was, for the first half of my career as a stylist and behind the chair, I was working, hopping around at salons, trying to figure it out, what I wanted to do. I always had a love for styling, which is when I moved to South Florida from New York, where I grew up. That's where I said, you know what? I'm going to start doing bridal hair. Like, why not? This is such a capital for people get married year round in Florida, right? So I ended up doing that. So during that time in Florida, those 2 years, where I was, doing bridal hair, and then I started tapping into the education a year after I started doing bridal. Just 1 year after going full-time bridal, I started educating. And then after that, I realized, wow, this is a lot. At the time, I was working with brands. I had some brand deals going on. I was teaching one-on-one classes. I was traveling teaching classes. I was behind the chair doing cut and color, and I was doing bride still. It was a crazy time. And at that point, my now husband and I decided we were going to move to North Carolina. And I said, you know what? My heart is in the education. I am going to strictly do that. This move is going to be that kick in the butt that I need to make that transition, because I have to start fresh slate when I move. And that was it. And so when we moved to Raleigh in 2000, and it was 2018 or 19, that is when I went to full-time educator. and started my online courses and programs and all of that. So that's kind of what the evolution looked like for me.
That's interesting. So you kind of answered my next question, that you were making a fresh start because you were relocating. So you thought, why not combine that with going all in with educating? And what really told you? It sounds like you were just feeling some burnout, but what else told you the time was right? Had you reached sort of a level of
Mm.
confidence in what you were doing?
Yeah, it was the level of, wow, this is what I just want to be doing. And also realizing what I'd outgrown. I outgrown working behind the chair. It no longer served me. I no longer wanted to do it. I had those relationships with my clients, which was that pull to like, oh, I'll just take you, girl, on the weekend. That's fine. I'll squeeze you in, right? Because we have our love for our clients. But I asked myself, what do I really want? And how do I want to serve people best with having my most energy and passion and everything, because I was feeling burnt out. I couldn't do all the things. It was too much for me. So I ended up like almost hating the things I was doing
Mm.
because I was on that burnout level. So that was the moment where I knew I had outgrown that version of myself. And I knew I wanted to step into that new, that new part of my journey. And it was just, it just happened to be that I was moving that gave me that extra push.
That's great. So, what advice? So, you kind of talked to us about how you came to the attention of brands, and what advice do you have for someone who wants to start in education? Maybe they want to do brand neutral education, or maybe they want to be affiliated with a brand.
Yeah, and that's such a great question because I've done both. So I've seen both sides of things. And ultimately, what I would tell someone starting out as an educator is do what you actually want to do that fits your lifestyle versus what you think you have to do. Because you can look at someone else on Instagram, see what they're doing, seeing their lifestyle, and be like, oh, I really, really want that. But does traveling all over the world work for your lifestyle if you're a mom of a newborn and a toddler? Or would you rather do something online and do classes that are closer to you, right? Or maybe you do have the childcare, or maybe you don't have any children and you do want to be a traveling stylist. That would work for you. Or working with brands, right? So there's some exclusivity when it comes to working with certain brands. And some brands will allow you to work with other brands depending on the products that they have, if they're not, in competition, which is what I did. I had a love for two different brands. I mean, Kenra and Design Me. And anytime I had done a paid collab for either of them, it never conflicted, which was amazing because I was able to use both brands, which is what I wanted because that's what I love to use. And I love to use a certain product from Design Me and certain ones from Kenra. So that worked for me. Also having that, flexibility of being an independent educator versus a brand educator. If you're a brand educator, you're tied in with the brand. You have to create a certain amount of content. You have to maybe only use their products, which is fine. If you want that exclusivity, if you want that consistency with getting, paid whatever you're getting paid with that brand, and then having that structure in place of, okay, I have to create this many posts, right? Versus independent educator, you have to do it all. You got to figure out how to market yourself. You need to figure out how you're going to get paid. No brand is paying you, right? Unless you're doing just collabs on creating reels and they pay you for your content. But I would tell someone who's first starting out in education is get clarity. Get clear on what kind of business fits your lifestyle as being independent. Maybe you don't have kids, your lifestyle as a mother if you do have children, your lifestyle based on your personality. What do you really like? What would you like to do? And then start branching off from that, and then get a coach or leader or mentor who's done it, who you can learn from, because it is really important to be surrounded around those people who are at where you want to be, right? Because they can teach you things that maybe you would make mistakes along the way that are really pricey mistakes that you don't necessarily have to make. I mean, everyone's going to go through things. Everyone's going to have experiences. And I really, truly believe those life experiences make you who you are and you come out the other side better. But there's something about being a part of a community or people who are, at or above the level you want to be at in order to get there.
Yeah, we rise to that level, don't we? It's always good to
Yeah,
play with somebody who's even better than you.
yeah.
So, Renee, I'm going to make sure that I link to your academy. I make sure that people can find you. We're going to feature this on our Modern Salon YouTube. We'll have it on online in an embedded article. Is there anything you want to leave us with before we say goodbye? I know you're multitasking today, so any final words, anything I didn't ask you?
Thank you for asking. And yes, my baby boy, he's down for a nap. We have the toddler; she's all set watching Little Mermaid right now. So yes, I'm like, okay, the monitor's right next to me. We're all good though. This was so wonderful. And if I had to leave, if I had to say one final thing on here today, it's just um, believe in yourself and the journey and the process, and know that you can do it. I mean, there is so much that you can compare yourself to out there. And I want you to really realize that the greatness is within you. You're your own unique person. There is nothing to compare to when you look at yourself and what you have to offer and give to others as an educator. And once you find out what that is, once it's drawn out, whether it's drawn out by being a part of an amazing community or friends who draw it out of you, or having a coach or mentor, or just having that self-reflection, that is what matters ultimately, and that's what's going to take you to the next level of growth, versus being in, your own head about things. So I always preach, find your community, find your people, find those like-minded people to be around, because it makes a world of difference when you are, growing into that new phase of yourself.
That's great. Thank you, Rene Marie. I'm so grateful for your time and to have watched your talent through the years is really a privilege. So thank you, and we'll say goodbye.
Okay, thanks so much, Anne and Modern.